anyway, so I picked up an issue of The Guardian around that time, and I read about something called TED Global, right? And what it was the TED conference's first ever conference outside of America.
Okay.
It took place in Oxford, and a woman named Carol Cadwalader, who became very famous later on, wrote it up and just waxed lyrical about this thing, right? So I looked it up, I Googled it, and discovered the main conference was in California, in Monterey at the time, and cost something like $4,400 to get into this thing. And on top of that, on top of, add injury into insult, you had to apply to get into this thing, right? I'm like, what the hell?
And wouldn't necessarily be accepted.
Exactly, right? So I thought, but I mean, there's no way we could, even if we had the money, there's no way we could have justified spending that kind of cash to send anyone, much less me, to think. But I discovered that Adobe at the time sponsored, I think, I don't know, say 5 to 10 passes for people in not-for-profits or charities, right? So I applied, and fortunately, I was able to get one of these golden tickets. It is a little bit like Willy Wonka, right? And anyway, so I went in 2006 and just had an extraordinary experience. I mean, on the surface, I mean, literally one of the first people I met there was Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, right? They were they were throwing up an opening party for what they called TED Virgins, people who would come into there for the first time. And, who else did I meet? Matt Groening I met online, we used to stay in line to go see the presentation that became Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And also stuff. And I could drop names left, right, and center, but that's not the point. I mean, literally, if I'd never met any of those people, the big thing is that, so it's a 4-day conference or thereabouts, and it typically starts at like 8:30 in the morning and goes to like 6:30 at night or something like that. And up to this point, for IBM and others, I'd been to tons of trade shows and exhibitions. And I generally speaking, I don't think I ever enjoyed a single one.
No.
Outside of...
They're pretty dull, really, aren't they?
Yeah, especially the actual bit.
Yeah.
It's all the actions of the evening, right?
Yeah.
And the dinners and the parties and blah, blah, blah. And I sat for 4 days transfixed on the edge of my seat, just listening to all this amazing content being beamed into my head. And coming back, after the dinner and after the drinks, at 11:30 at night with more energized than when I left in the morning, much to the annoyance of my partner and our daughter at the time. We were like, passing out. And and it was a life-changing experience, as it has been for many people. And I came back to the North End and said, I know what we're going to do. We're going to try to create something like that. And unfortunately, at the time, there was no TEDx event. And if there was, then Thinking Digital might never have existed. We might have just had, the TEDx Newcastle event. But it didn't. So we did actually write in, but I'm sure they'd had at that point thousands of people say, "Oh, could we do something like a TED locally?"
Yeah.
And I'm sure they always just brushed it away with a due sense of irritation. And so that's ultimately why we decided to launch Thinking Digital.
Right.
Was just like, well, we'll just...
So it was very much modeled on the TED conference, but...
Yeah, totally. We overtly, proudly, said totally inspired by that experience, and we're not, we're not going to have, we didn't think billionaires would start attending our conference, or Cameron Diaz, or these sorts of people. So, but we just thought, before there was 10X, we thought, I'm positive that this kind of content, this kind of format, can be appreciated by tons of people, not just the co-founders of Google and the
chosen few who are selected to travel to Monterey.
Exactly, right. And that it took a while. Now, but the problem, of course, is when we launched the conference in 2007, and 2008 was actually the first conference. There were no TED Talks. Yeah. There was no TEDx. So me telling people about this was just like, what on earth are you talking about? It's probably like when people first heard about Burning Man. You're like,
what do you compare it to?
What the hell? Why am I going to go out to this friggin' desert to like be with all these weirdos and artists? And anyway, so yeah, and the first year was nearly a disaster. I mean, it was because we were also we were also, we were charging upwards of like £700 to kind of attend this thing, right? And because part of the whole inspiration was that it was going to be like self-sustainable, right?
Yeah.
And also for me, well, you could go to the real TED at 4,400, or you could save all this money, right?
Yeah.
But if you never knew about the other one, then you're like, well, why? So, and at the time, you remember, I mean, the place was flooded with all this labor money, right? Yeah. And so conferences charging were actually pretty rare.
Yeah.
Everything was free back then.
And people expected everything to be free, didn't
they?
they?
Just a total, and it was just like, what, you're charging? And you're charging more than £5? What the hell? So that, but I think it was more than the cost. It was just simply just the concept of, and so the first one was just like how we got enough people into the room. I mean, I'd say we got just enough people to the event that it wasn't embarrassing. It was a face-saving conference.
I would call that success for the first ever
of
something like that. I would say that counts as success.
Yeah.